Good afternoon. Welcome to the March 16th, 2016 meeting of Ignite Coeur d'Alene, Coeur d'Alene's Urban Renewal Agency, and welcome. The first item tonight would be if everybody would rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. It's time for our first opportunity for public comment tonight. If anybody would like to address us for any items that are not directly related to our agenda, step up to the mic and identify yourself. Not appearing so. Thank you. We'll get a chance at the end of the meeting for the same thing. The next item is the approval of the minutes of our last meeting of February 17, 2016.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on those minutes? Not appearing so. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And it passes. Thank you. The next item is a presentation of a project over here on Front Avenue called Park Place Tower. I'll turn it over to, I believe, Chris. Are you going to lead the discussion? Chris Pereira. Identify yourself. Yep.
I'm Chris Pereira. Do you need my address or that official thing here?
I don't think so.
We presented to the committee earlier. We are proposing a new condominium project over here on Front Street next to McEwen Terrace. It's a piece of property that's listed there. We are proposing a
Chris, you're welcome to speak from the podium if you'd
that
like.
would be better. Yeah, thank you.
Yep. Thanks, Chris.
Perfect. Thank you. No, I'll let you push the button, so I don't have to worry about it. So the first slide here kind of gives an overview of the proposed project. We are looking at a 12-unit condominium complex on the corner there where the star is. Our understanding is from our preliminary review that everything that we're proposing fits within the city's criteria at this point. We're not going to be asking for any variations to the property. It's going to be ground level parking garage with 6 floors above with a rooftop terrace area that will have a community room and a sun deck. Why don't you go back to the first? Go back. Okay, well, next slide. As you can see, the floor plan number 1 is the ground level parking. We'll have, on that level, we'll have parking, individual garages for each unit with an elevator in the core center area there. And page number 2 is the first elevated floor, which will actually be at the alley elevation. There's some fall between the alley and Front Street. We're going to recess the first floor a little bit to take advantage of having access to 3 parking garages at alley level, similar to what's at McEwen Terrace now. At that level, on the east portion of the property, will still be underneath, I believe, 35 or 38-foot height restriction. Go to the next slide. And then going up from the 3rd through 7th floor, we will step back to be within the height requirements on the west side of the property, and we'll have 6 floors of 2 units per floor, going up to a rooftop activity center and rooftop terrace. Okay. So what our request has been for some assistance in this project, and that's the breakdown of what we're looking at. So, sidewalks for Front Street, landscaping enhancements for Front Street, irrigation, lighting, and site amenities of a bench and probably a bicycle rack and some trash cans, so of that nature. We're anxious to get started. We've got the property. We're doing our due diligence now. We hope to go to design within the next 3 to 4 weeks. Hope to break ground sometime in July or early August and construct through the winter and have this completed in the spring of 2017. I guess I'd open it up to questions. That's probably the best way to move forward.
Okay, for questions for Chris or his team? I've got one, Chris. The request for the funding, is all that money going to be spent in the public right-of-way?
Yes.
Okay. Now, have you had your project review with the city to know, like you said, the landscaping and the sidewalk replacement and all that? Is that all things that they're requiring you to do?
We have not had public or review.
Step behind the light, please?
Oops.
We have not had that review
Okay.
at this point. As I said, we're in our due diligence stage. We've based these numbers off of a meeting with Avista, and Monty Miller obviously has quite a bit of experience with what's going to be happening down there. So we've met with Monty, and he helped us come up with these numbers.
Okay. Deanna?
Question, you have 40,000 listed as public improvements. There's not a lot of land, extra land there. So is that a bench and some, what you showed here was a bench and some
Well, public
parking.
improvements, I believe, can we go back to that slide so I can see how Sandy has this?
public amenities.
Public amenities.
What does that include?
Well, we're assuming that we're going to have to realign Front Street and redo the sidewalks and add some landscape areas in that area there. It also, that's the sidewalks, the landscaping would be along Front Street, also irrigation and lighting. We're going to add a couple street lights in that area for lighting of the project.
Any improvements being required in the alley behind the building?
There'll be some paving required, and we're also going to be relocating 2 power poles
Okay.
for Avista.
Okay.
What they're going to do, they're going to take the existing power poles that are kind of centered on our property, and they're going to move them to the corners of the property. We looked at going underground, but it's just cost prohibitive.
Okay.
Chris, roughly what's the price point of the units going to be?
Price points are going to be starting at approximately high 4s all the way up to $800,000 for the penthouse units.
Okay, thanks.
Steve?
I guess the question, I view urban renewal dollars as an incentive. It's an economic incentive to build. So the big question would be is if urban renewal dollars weren't available, would you still move forward with the project?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Deanna?
Chris, you're the construction company on this. Are you also a partner, and are your partners local?
I'm part of the development team, and I'll also be the contractor.
And are the partners all local folks, or?
2 of us are local. 1 is from out of town, but is a part-time resident.
Thank you. And I'm assuming the zoning is correct.
I'm sorry?
The zoning, you don't have to get a zone change.
Yeah, we're doing everything within the current zoning. We're not going to be asking for any variances.
Yeah, Brad?
Mr. Acting Chairman,
Yes, sir.
do you have an estimate of the market value? Has there been any discussion about that? And I don't know if his finance committee looked at the increment this generates or anything.
Yeah, go ahead, Tony.
Yes, the projected increment in value is $7.5 million. And so the request is $80,000, so it probably, it would generate plenty of increment to repay that if the board would go there with that reimbursement agreement.
Right.
Okay. Any other further discussion? This was kind of an informational item tonight. These folks would probably like to know somewhat soon if we're what our mood is or what our reaction is to the request. Is there any other information that we need from them to consider in this? Steve basically asked the but-for test. If you didn't have this, would you would you proceed anyhow? And they said yes. So,
Yeah, we've seen the financials on it, so we have those available.
so, what direction the board you guys want to take this under consideration? You want to wish them well? What do you want to do on this thing?
I understood this was an informational
Okay.
presentation today.
You need more information to ponder?
Well, usually do these run normally through Finance Committee? These requests? I mean, are we going to kind of run it through the normal channels, or are we going
So what,
to?
if I may, what happens is, when we get a project overtures, we initially run them through Finance Committee, so the Finance Committee can ask questions and discuss, and then make sure that the team brings the appropriate information together for the full board, like you're seeing today. And so the next step would be for the board to ruminate on the overture and then discuss it at the April board meeting to see if you want to go forward or not.
Right.
So it wouldn't go back to the Finance Committee.
Okay.
Because quite often, we don't ask for or expect a decision the first time you've heard the information. It's more informational, and then you have an opportunity to make a
Kind of
decision.
what I'm asking, yeah.
That's what we do most of the time.
That's kind of what it seemed like, yeah.
Yeah.
And we, as a finance committee, we did review it, and we have seen all the finances. Has everybody seen the entire project packet? Okay.
Yeah. So in the email, I was trying to recall what the estimated increment was on it.
Do you recall, Tony, what it
I mean,
would generate an increment on an annual
The
basis?
increment generation, though, I know the market value.
It'd be probably around 75, 80,000 a year.
Yeah.
I was guesstimating that
About 1%.
1% or 1.1,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
Do we need any other detail on, where these numbers came from for sidewalks? I think Chris had mentioned something about potentially realigning Front Street.
There'll be some realignment required because of the parking garage that'll be coming in at that location. I'm assuming that we'll have to reconfigure that juncture there and probably create some landscape elements and redo the sidewalks to get around the driveway that'll be coming in there.
Yeah, when you say realignment, and that street's brand new there, but when you say realignment, I assume you're talking about
The sidewalks.
curb cut approaches and
Yes.
sidewalks. Okay, we're not
Yes.
really realigning the curb or the street dimensions or anything like that. I wouldn't.
Well, there'll be some realignment of the curbing and the sidewalk to get it access into the parking garage of the project.
Right, okay.
Okay? You want to direct?
Oh, one other thing. You don't have any kind of an elevation of this yet?
No.
Okay.
Chris, can you go back to slide number 1 real quick? First slide that shows there. So the street is on the east side of the corner there, where front bends. There is a possibility that there could be some street alignment on the east side of your property. Is that correct?
I apologize, I can't hear you.
I'm sorry. So on the east side, so the front curves there, is there a possibility that the street, as it goes straight, is there going to be a realignment of the street, or is there a meaning change to the street proper?
If you look in front of where it's labeled A, B,
Right.
okay, we have a problem, look at that. So our entrance to the parking garage is going to be right about here. So I'm anticipating that something will have to be done in this area. And there's an existing planter here, and they may say because of cars pulling out, we have to realign this because of line of sight. So we're anticipating having to redo this here, new curb, new sidewalk, and some type of new landscape element, and possibly something over on this side as well. So that will be something that we'll get into once we go through the city review.
Perfect, thank you.
I have one other question, or it's kind of a question, I guess. if at some point along the way you have some kind of an elevation of this building, I'd really be interested to see that. I can't say at this point what we'd be doing in the way of funding. You know, we haven't discussed that. But rightly or wrongly, I kind of like to know the look of a project if we're going to be involved in it. And obviously, you'll have to go through design review and a number of different things because you're in the downtown core area there. But I just thought at the point you're at, you've got floor plans and so forth. You must have some kind of rough ideas on some outside elevations of the building.
Well, we have some great ideas, but until we do our due diligence, I was not in a position to spend a lot more money on creating elevations. So we've done what we need to go to our investors in the bank and have a concept and run some preliminary budget numbers. We were requested to get this process started early because it's my understanding that this needs to be done before we actually get a permit, this process. So we're just trying to be proactive here and bring it to the committee, and we'll be more than happy to bring other elements as we create them to you.
Okay.
Well, and I want you to know, regardless of what happens here with this body, I wish you luck.
Yeah.
I think that, you know, it's nice to have some more addition to the downtown core, and I think another multi-story building adds to the critical mass of the downtown, and so like I said, I think this is great, and wish you luck on this.
We think it'll be a nice transition between what's there and the residential neighborhood.
Right.
Okay, is the board's pleasure then that we bring this back up as an action item next month? You guys contemplate that. Invite public comment in the meantime for what information's been presented, and we will get back with you if there are questions that come up amongst us or that we can't answer that we're asked by the public. So,
and there's a very good possibility by your next meeting that we might have some preliminary elevations to bring to you as well.
and this is probably about the first time that you've kind of gone public with your intent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you very
your time.
much, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Brad, did you have something?
I just add, along with what you said, Mr. Chairman, if along the way, prior to our next meeting, you have some more information on this building, you could certainly get that to Tony, and he could get it out to us ahead of time.
Yeah, we'll forward it to you.
Okay, thank you very
That'd be
much.
All right, thanks a lot. Okay, next item on our agenda as we start through our committee reports, Mr. Caldwell, Finance Committee.
Okay, let's go ahead and go over the finances, and like we quite often do, let's start with the Lake District first. And we'll start with the balance sheet on the Lake District. And during the month, the Lake District did have a decrease in cash of $952,791. And that decrease was due primarily to all the payments we approved last meeting to make our semi-annual payments on our debt obligations. And those are primarily obligations that we have with different projects that we pay twice a year. Also listed on the assets, we had a change in some principal balances owed as a result of those payments. The ice plant promissory note, that principal was decreased by $22,010. The chamber DDA was decreased by $929, relatively small. And then the 609 Sherman Lofts had a decrease in principal of $3,375. If you go down a little bit further and we go down to liabilities, mortgages payable, and again on the balance sheet, we had a decrease of notes payable of $809,795 for February, which is way bigger than a typical month. A typical month is more like $7,700, but we had an $802,132 payment made on our Lake District bond to Washington Trust Bank, and that's a semi-annual payment we make to them. Everything else was fairly static for the month, but really the big change was a large decrease in cash and then just explanation on where that money has gone. If you go to the profit and loss for, again, the Lake District, you will see that we had some revenue come in during the month on tax increment, which was $95,072. We had some rent income of $12,314. A few miscellaneous items gives us a total income of $109,403. Then if you go down to the payments that we made during the month, and I'd like to just bring your attention to a couple of them. Everything else was pretty standard, but if you go about two-thirds way down the page, you'll see taxes and increment payments, and you'll see a number there that's $26,315. That represents the principal payments made during the month. And then you go down to the very bottom line, it says interest expense. That's where you'll see the $186,376 that we paid in interest expenses. And again, this is for the Lake District. Any questions about those items for the Lake District before we move to the River District? Seeing none, if you could go to the River District next. If you go to the River District, again, let's start with the balance sheet if we could. The River District also had a decrease in cash, not as much as the Lake District, but we did have a decrease of $158,290. And like the Lake District, this was a result of payments that we make semi-annually on our obligations. The assets changed slightly from the standpoint of principal reductions. We didn't have any principal reductions until we got down to the Riverstone West Apartments 3, and we did have a reduction there, a decrease of $4,316. Everything else was interest only. There was no other significant items on the liabilities for the district. But if you go to the profit and loss statement, that's where you can see what happened. And we'll start with the income. As far as property tax revenue, $34,308. And we had interest income of $330, so total came in of $34,638. If you go about two-thirds of the way down the page like we did on the Lake District, you will see that we have the principal payments of $4,316. And again, as I mentioned earlier, that was on Riverstone West. And then you go down to the bottom of the expense category, you'll see the interest expense of $179,994. So in general, for both districts, quite a bit of activity as relates to making payments, some activity as relates to receiving tax increment. And as you recall, we make these payments twice a year, and there's a lot of them right now that are on interest only. Any questions about the income or the expenses or balance sheet for the River District? Seeing none, I'd like to move to payables if we could. Payables this month are relatively light compared to a typical month. You will see a total in payables that we'd like your approval on of $3,959.49. The breakdown is to Elam and Burke of $551, and then we have Holly Troxel of $1,530, and Molitor and Associates of $1,878.49. So total during the month, as mentioned earlier, just about $4,000. Any questions on the payables? Okay.
Not appearing so, I go ahead and entertain a motion to approve both the River District and the Lake District's financial report, as well as approval for the payables for the month of February.
I move to approve the Lake District and River District financials and payables.
Fair second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? That passed. Thank you very much, Ms. Caldwell. Anything else from?
Nope, that'll be it for the Finance Committee.
Okay, thank you, sir. Next up is housing. Mr. Goodlander.
There have been no meetings with the housing company, so we've been a pretty quiet month housing-wise, or pretty quiet winter, actually.
Okay.
And so I have no report, sir.
All right. Parking.
No parking report, nothing new on that, Mr. Chairman. We do have our next parking meeting in April.
Okay. I remember watching something, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Mayor, Council, I think had a presentation, was it last month, pertaining to parking study and also kicking that off as far as revenues and I think some enforcement with parking fines enforcement.
Yeah, that's kind of going through the legal process. It's called scofflaw or booting program, and it
Make them happy.
It addresses the people, the repeat offenders. If you have 4 or more tickets, they're working up a program where there'll be a warning system to get caught up on the tickets, and then eventually, if there continues to be ignoring of the notices, then you could potentially have your car booted if you're parked downtown illegally. Hasn't been passed. That is just a proposal that's on the table right now.
So they're trying to put some teeth into the
Trying to.
existing structure. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. All right, thank you very much. The next item is item D under communication. That's the hat I wear in addition to being the vice chair. What communications would like to do is bring up kind of a housekeeping item. Tony utilizes on numerous occasions the video that we had made for educational for how tax increment financing works and some of the various projects that we've been involved with in the city. As part of that housekeeping, there's the project of the McEwen Park is not included in that, and also the reference to our old name, LCDC, is throughout that video. We've talked with the folks that did it initially for us, Range Northwest, and they've given us an estimate of the cost to, you might say, modernize or update this tool. And also this runs on, I believe, Channel 19 a couple of times a day also. But we found it's been a very, at least Tony's reception, feedback on when he uses it for his various presentations, that it's very informative and people understand it a little bit better after viewing it. So what we'd like to do is bring forward the concept of updating, spending a little bit of money, and making this video pertinent, up to date, and a little bit more accurate on what we're doing. So Tony's passing out.
I emailed this out. I don't know if you have copies. I got a couple extra copies here.
The projected costs to do this.
Share.
And we initially talked to the folks late last summer, early fall on doing this, and the projected costs with all their production, and I believe we're talking about possibly a new voice.
Correct.
New voice in this, because the previous talent wanted too much money, so we wanted to keep the costs as close as we could. Production, the fees, video, and the scripting update, the total is $3,657. So I'd like to have you all contemplate that. We'd like to get a decision, yay or nay, on it if we can tonight. If you need more information and want to come back to committee to readdress something, we can sure do that. But we'd like to move forward on this and get this updated. Questions?
I don't have any questions. I'd just like to make a motion that we go forward with the renovation and
Okay.
changing.
Okay, there's been a motion. Do I hear a second? Okay, moved and seconded. Questions, discussion on it?
I guess just from my viewpoint, it's just a fundamental difference. I think enough dollars have been spent on marketing promotion, and so I'll be voting no on it.
Okay.
And I, talking to Tony over the years and how he uses this presentation at different venues he's asked to come talk to, I think it's real important that it be updated and accurate.
Okay.
I've always been opposed to this name change and all the costs associated with it, and I haven't really agreed with the advice we've gotten from Range. But, you know, we did do the name change. That passed, and I think Tony, as long as Ignite is our name, Tony needs a video to work with. So although I'll go ahead and vote for it, but although I've been against Range's advice in doing the name change the whole way, but I think as long as our name is what it is, Tony needs the material to work with.
Okay. Any other comments before we vote?
I guess I'd agree with Brad on this. There's been a lot of money spent on marketing and communications, and it gets to the point that you feel like it's a never-ending cycle of redoing something, but this is something that's viewed by a lot of people. It's a great PR tool that Tony uses. I wish that we could finally get to the point where we're done updating and just start using our money more efficiently than for some of the communications we are using it for. I will also vote for it, but reluctantly.
I'll make a comment from the chair's seat here. Is I understand totally what you all are talking about. If the name change hadn't occurred, I still think we'd need to refresh this particular video to keep it current. That's one of the things you run into when you take a picture of a downtown, or you take some sort of a video chronology of a particular event. Things change and move on. And I think from the perspective that we need to keep it fresh, and it needs to be accurate, that it's money well spent. So I'll get back off my pedestal a little bit. Okay, any other comments? Okay, let's go ahead and vote. All those in favor of the motion by Mrs. Goodlander signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you very much. That's all. I guess I'll report to myself. That's all communications has, Mr. Chair. Okay, Jobs Committee. Mick.
No report today.
Okay. God, you guys are blowing through this thing. We might get out of here by... No, we won't. We got executive. Mr. Burns, Executive Director's report.
Just a couple updates on the project front. First off, on the Mullen Road project, the Four Corner update. I shared with you, and I'll share with the viewing audience, that the city received 4 sealed bids on March 9th for the Four Corners Master Plan element of the Mullen Road project. Interstate Concrete and Asphalt was one bidder. DG&S Company, second bidder. Tom Lavery was the third bidder, and Cameron Riley was the fourth bidder. Cameron Riley was a low bidder at $1,481,760. They came in $20,000 less than the Welch-Comer engineer cost estimate, which was a little over $1.5 million. And I understand last night that City Council went ahead and awarded the contract to Cameron Riley for their stated bid amount, and the city is going to work through the process of making sure they got all the correct insurance and all the information they need before they go ahead and consummate that deal. The plan is, if everything works out, is to begin construction on March 28th, and with a completion date scheduled for sometime July, late July probably. Yes.
Were we not shooting for a July 2nd opening? Now, maybe you're talking completion of the project.
Completion is a relative term. I
Right.
think there'll be, I don't know how complete it will be in early
Right.
July.
Possibly semi-completion July 2nd and full completion the end of July. Is that kind of what?
I'm not
Yeah.
completely sure.
Okay, I just remember that July 2nd date. Didn't mean to interrupt you.
That
I
might
just
be
wondered if
optimistic
anything
date,
changed.
but
I was a
I
little
think-
over-optimistic.
I think we asked that question last meeting of the development folks, Phil Boyd, and he said initially they wanted to be done kind of by the 4th of July, but I think
Right.
that they've had some things that have pushed it back into possibly late July, early August. But they were going to try to have things safed for the 4th of July so that the pedestrians and the people down there wouldn't be tripping over stuff
Right.
and involved with it, so.
Okay, that makes sense.
The second item, Mr. Chair, is just an update on the Collaborative Education Facility Initiative that's being spearheaded by North Idaho College, University of Idaho, and Lewis and Clark State College, as well as our partnership. And I don't know, Commissioner Hoskins, if you just want to give a brief update on any current conversations between Kootenai Health and that team.
I think it was about 2 weeks ago, several executives from Kootenai Health and from NIC met, and they are in the middle of collaborating on developing a multi-purpose space of, I don't know, in the 6,000 to 8,000 square foot range, so they can house 250 people or so for educational events, meetings. So yes, that's going forward nicely.
So it grew a little bit.
Thank you, Scott. That's a
Great.
huge move on your part to get that moving forward.
I agree. Otherwise, I don't think it would have happened.
It would have never happened.
So that's
Thank
really
you.
been good.
Anything else, Tony?
That will do it.
Okay, thank you.
Say, Mr. Chairman?
yes, sir.
Excuse me. Just along those lines, I just wanted to say, I was really pleased last week to find out, and correct me, Steve, if I'm wrong on this, but they are really close on the carousel to having enough money raised to start breaking ground on that, and they're looking at possibly breaking ground and that thing opening in conjunction with the project here later this summer.
Yeah, the fundraiser that we had at the on John Swallow's building, on 3rd and Lakeside, the Great Northern Depot or whatever
Saturday.
they call that. Yeah, it brought in over $50,000. So that was a great event, and there's been a lot of there is a group that Brad's affiliated with, the old Athletic Roundtable that's still around. They stepped up to the plate, and I believe we're sitting here right now today, they're just $10,000 away from their fundraising goal. To be able to not only break ground, have enough money for the building, but as well as to have the $60,000
Operating reserve. Huh?
operating reserve. So it looks like that they're going to get there.
But they're still taking donations.
Yeah, they're still taking donations.
For
Yes.
Yeah.
the
Yeah. So
perpetuity part of
we
it.
still are we still are 10,000 short.
Yeah. Plus, okay. Well, great. That's good to hear. Thanks, Brad.
Yeah, and I've been told our mayor is at the forefront of completing the fundraising and
Well, he wants to ride that
making
thing.
calls around the community, so
Nice job.
The problem when you're at the
Thank you for
forefront of that
that.
fundraising, it usually costs yourself some money.
It's called making direct eye
you're a
contact.
community-minded person. But I was just excited to hear about that this thing has really come into reality. So I think that'll be exciting for a lot of people in the community to see that happen, especially this summer.
It's great. Great. Anything else, Mr. Burns?
No, that's all I have.
Okay, board commissioner comments.
I guess I'm
Well,
supposed to comment about right now. I know all of you have seen the email, but this will be my last meeting on this board. I've decided to resign and allow somebody else the opportunity. It's interesting when I started, Dave Patzer, as you all know, asked me to join the group 16 years ago. And at the time, Dave gave me an idea how many hours I would need to spend, probably a couple hours a month. And, it's just, we'll see how it goes. And I looked at the board members and thought, this is a really good group of folks that want to do things right. I didn't know anything about urban renewal at the time, so it was an education experience for me to understand how it works. And Dave was a good salesman, did a good job. But I would have to say it's been very enjoyable to meet a lot of the commissioners that I didn't know as well beforehand, to interact with some of the folks in the public on various projects. Not to say we always agreed on everything, but we had good discussion about what we're trying to accomplish. And I look around Coeur d'Alene and I feel pretty good about a lot of things that we've been involved with in some small way. So for me, it's been very enjoyable. To work with the group that's on this board right now has also been a lot of fun. And so it's just been one of those volunteer things you do and you go, yeah, that's been good. And I've liked it. And it gives you more of appreciation how the city works, more appreciation of what the city council and the mayor do, which are really big jobs. And so it's really been good. And I know you guys will find somebody else to replace me. I do think it's good to have new people on the board. I never planned on being here for 16 years. If somebody would have asked me, I would have said, well, maybe I've been on here 8 or 9. But just to let you know, that's what I'm doing. And thanks for all the support from everybody.
Well, Rod, I remember that afternoon or that evening that I called you, and you were the first one I called. And I was asked by, I think, Charlie at the time to approach you because he knew you and I went back a ways and played basketball together and that sort of thing. So I at least had you take my call, and I appreciate that. I did tell you it was only a couple hours a month. At that time, it was.
For about 5 or 6 months, as I recall.
1999 or 2000 it was. And, I will say this, sir, we put together a plaque in recognition of those 16 years, and I'll read it here, but you certainly brought what I want to say is a real level of credibility. And I echo what you say about the quality of the people and the involvement and the just the camaraderie that has evolved over the years. But you brought a real level of financial, as they say, integrity. I mean, you helped set the bar extremely high. We've had nothing but stellar audit reports from Magnuson. I know we sat around in finance and says, how can this thing bite us in the butt? Because we, excuse my
Sounded like Donald Trump.
yeah, well, that's not a good, yeah. Well, anyhow, you really help, I guess, make the job easier for the rest of us by understanding what some of the terminology was and coming up with, how do we spread the money out to minimize the risk of the FDIC limitations, and, what do we do as far as follow-ups and secondary checks, because the money issue, I've seen a lot of situations in which public entities, they meet once or twice a month, and somehow something happens, they get sideways, and there turns out to be the oh crap moment when they realize that there's money missing. And you certainly helped shore up that potential and putting some policies and safeguards in place, and for that, forever indebted. The plaque we'd like to present to you says, Rod Caldwell, Commissioner, IgniteCDA, formerly Coeur d'Alene's redevelopment agency from 2000 to 2016. In recognition of 16 years of public service to the community of Coeur d'Alene, your leadership, vision, and commitment were instrumental in creating public-private partnerships that will provide lasting benefits for the community. Coeur d'Alene is a better place due to your community involvement. March 16, 2016. So I want to give you this. Got it. Thanks again, Ron.
Thank you very
Anybody
much.
else? Yes, Deanna.
I'd just like to thank Rod for his many years of service. Leadership in a community is hard to find, and you certainly provided us with leadership in these last 16 years. And thank you so much for what you've given us. This community owes you, and we all owe you for the wonderful leadership you have provided all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Very nice.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm a relative newbie. I haven't been on here 16 years by any means, but I have been on finance with you since I've been on the board, and I really, really respect what you've brought to Finance Committee. It's been very enlightening seeing your insight and your input and just your way of thinking, and it's something that's going to be vastly missed on our committee, that committee and the full committee in general. So thank you from somebody that's relatively new, but really appreciates it.
Thanks, Mick.
Ms. Mayor.
I go way back with Rod, even though I was short term on this board. 30 years ago, I believe that Rod gave me one of my first loans a long time ago, and so he started my career on money borrowing, and I've been pretty good at it throughout the years. I think I even paid that loan back.
Yes, you did.
But when you say the name Rod Caldwell to anyone, they recognize someone that is really a first-class guy and someone that's a true professional and a great guy. And so I just wanted to thank you. It's not easy, especially for what has happened in urban renewal in the city, all of the battles you guys have fought, and you've stood strong and you've done a wonderful job for this community. So I just wanted to thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I haven't known Rod as quite as long as you have, but I've known him for several decades. Local guy, I've been here forever. And as the mayor said, when you talk about, banking in Coeur d'Alene, Rod's right at the top there as far as the most well-known and respected bankers in Coeur d'Alene. And so I really enjoyed having you come on board with us. It's been really nice to get to know you on a little more, personal level. And you've brought a lot to the table, your financial insight you have. So I appreciate all your service and appreciate being able to serve with you.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Rod.
You bet.
Okay. All right. Next on our agenda is the second opportunity for public comment. Anybody want to address the board? Okay. Then the next item is executive session. If nobody else has anything, let's go to the order. Need a motion to go into executive session under Idaho Code Section 67-2345, subsection 1, subsection C, I should say, to conduct deliberations to acquire an interest in real property which is not owned by a public agency. I believe we need a roll call.
moved.
Okay,
I'll second it.
okay, been moved and seconded. Roll call, Mr. Burns.
Goodlander?
Yes.
Caldwell?
Aye.
Harmon?
Yes.
Whitmire?
Yes.
Patzer?
Yes.
Jordan?
Yes.
Hoskins?
Yes.
All right, we are adjourned to executive session.
Cole's here to take our picture in front of the
Oh,
sign, so
okay.
maybe we can all do that before.
Okay, before we go in.